just eating mostly fish 3-4 serves a week, like close to no carbs, all protein diet, really, really high protein, red protein, like white meat as well. It's so don't get me wrong, like,
Hey, how you going again? You going? You going?
double
Welcome. You got me at the wrong time.
But I'm just
It's all it's not my way.
No, I was paying off, baby. Yeah. I know.
Looks good.
It's pretty good for 4 months. 2 kilo, about 2.5 kilos a month. Yeah, exactly. I want to be keeping it up. That's why. Take the seat.
Yeah, I'm Sammy. Sorry, we're definitely in the... Yeah. Nice to meet you. How are you going? Nice to meet you. Oh, look at you, mate. How are you going? Nice to meet you. You guys came to me last time. This was a cool experience.
Side, but a creative.
That's
Look
good.
at the line for pizza.
Alright, the big one. Yeah, definitely outgrown this place.
You know what, babe?
Hey mate, how you going?
Just grab me like one vegetarian.
Danny, nice to meet you, mate. Nah, go grab some food, say hi to someone, drop your bag and join in.
How do you know Jimmy? How funny. We've worked together as well. So like, I'm a professional dancer. I've danced on stage while she was DJing. I dated one of her mates from the States as well. Yeah. What's your DJ name? Daphne. All over the world, but...
so you can play with some of the lots to see which is better there. Like I can see the focus is a bit off. So feel free to. I definitely want to take that out of the way a little bit more. That. Hey Vaughn, what's up, brother? How are you? Hey buddy, how are you?
That's good, sorry.
Nice to meet you, Charlie. What's up, bud? Nice to come at the right time. The pizzas are definitely better. Wow. Big day today. Right, it's a big day.
I'm not inside that. A bit critical. Suss out what's going on in the space.
I think the other one was better. Yeah, I think this is better.
That one?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
reckon. Did you know he was inside?
I put it back down.
First time everything. Hey, how are you? Yeah, come here, man.
Do you feel like it'd be useful to bring a laptop?
Sorry?
Do you reckon it'd be useful to have a laptop?
Yeah.
Everyone's got their laptops.
Huh?
Everyone's got their laptops.
Yeah, it's a practical.
Am I supposed to like download something before I come?
Yeah. Like, usually it's like stuff that you're not in the technical side of cyber. It's a technical meetup.
Is it? No, I'm not technically.
Oh, I'm trying to see.
That's why I'm like, mixed networks, see what's going on in space.
Yeah, fair.
Technical is for the technical people. Technically, I'm not technical. Technically, I'm not technical.
Yeah. How did you find this meetup?
On Eventbrite.
Yeah.
I was looking at business meetups and network because I'm a partnerships. I'm a public relations and partnerships manager.
Oh, yeah, sure. Oh, okay.
So I bring businesses. I bring businesses together. You know what it's like, partnerships. You go across industry, doesn't matter what industry it is, you cross industry. Right? 5 minutes before here. Or just turn it into like, you're a DJ, just remix it into some sound. Chuck Britney Spears over it. I feel like everyone's loving it with the pizza.
Yeah, I think we're good. So I just want, I think actually.
I wasn't sure. Oh, girl, thank you, baby. Yes. Mama.
I was actually confused, but then I was like, oh, like,
I didn't care about that. I probably won't even eat this. I was like little nibbles.
I'm not, I haven't started doing that, but I'm ready to.
I know
It's good as a brain thing, like start dropping it around. I don't pay my dues first now.
Yeah. Well, exactly right. I haven't had pizza in a while. Cheers, Baba. This is jokes. Turn around. I'm like, what? DJs around Melbourne too. And I was like, how did I know this? I'm surprised we haven't seen each other in the industry. Yeah, I haven't seen it. I know. And I work in all the clubs and shit as well. I know. So when she's starting tech sale? So like COVID-ish, after COVID-ish time. I love that. It's so really? I feel like it's not. Yeah. Do you know what? I'm kind of on a similar path because I'm getting over the nightlife. And I thought to myself, maybe dancing wasn't for me, it was sitting and sitting as well. When it comes to like late nights, I want to be asleep when I'm going. I'm happy with that. That's right. You're going to be a nightlife person. Don't get me wrong, I can still stay up with it. But it's loud in there. I know, I'm like, it's loud. When I realize it's getting loud, I'm either getting too old. I'm like, I need to leave. Like, it's 10:30 by now. And I used to years ago. I don't need that stuff anymore. But now I'm like, yeah, exactly like,
I usually use it. Sammy, you need anything? Like you want some pizza or something?
And what interests you? Like, I want to do videos. I want to do some professional speaker.
okay if I didn't bring my laptop today?
Yeah, it's fine. We're not going to do a workshop today.
I'm gonna get more.
Just so happened that there's so much going on.
Because I was already coming out of the train, I'm like, oh, I didn't take my laptop, but then you didn't mention anything. So
How healthy are you?
look
I'm
at
looking at
that.
her. I'm like, give me more cheese.
It's been recorded. I'm not going to say anything.
Maybe healthy, but
that's
there's a lot
super
to eat, so
That's looking. I know I can't tempt her. She eats too clean. It's good. Probably when A1 was here. Oh no, he's working hard. He's singing all over LA. He's showcasing his talent, like he's going around from club to club, from place to place. He is. I always say to him, I'm like, don't worry about rap. You're a soul guy. You've got a soul voice. It really does. He's got that deep, like, lion kick on his stomach. You can see. We were supposed to go back into it. And he had to leave, so this is he's got his baby girl and he's got his son and his daughter who's fully responsible. Yeah. And he's not with his baby mother. He's a good kid, I actually miss him. I haven't spoken to him that I know, it's yeah, good kid, yeah. Good unit you are, good unit.
Hey guys, I think it's a bit better now.
When everyone goes quiet, the public will be
Alright, if you all don't mind, please grab a seat. You can grab a pizza and your can of drink and grab a seat so we can begin. We've got so many awesome things to go through today. And I'm looking forward to the talk, most importantly.
They're not even listening.
It's not here yet. Alright. I'm coming back, people.
Back after this intermission. Can't stop There's so much quality content.
Yeah, there you go. Aha, I told you I'll be back. Alright guys, thanks so much. I am absolutely loving the the conversation, the vibe. This is essentially why we built BlueCon. Like, if you notice, it's built differently. It's not a captive audience. You're not sitting down facing forward. It's purposely built this way so you can actually really get to meet people. So, loving the the good conversations and chats, and oh, you got pizza and beer, jeez, and soft drinks as well. What could go wrong? All right, if you guys don't mind grabbing a seat, I think we have 2 spots left in front here. And if you don't have a seat to sit on, I'm sure you can get someone to piggyback you for a bit. Completely not supported by BlueCon, but if you guys can get an agreement, definitely go for it. All right. Thanks so much, everyone, once again, for coming to BlueCon 0x0B. A quick one to start with. Now, if you're not in pen testing, you are allowed to answer this question. If you're in pen testing, please don't answer this question for the sake of those who are here, who are new to the game. In the great fashion of BlueCon, who can tell me what 0x0B actually means? Pen testing, I see ya. 11 in hacks. Who said that? Perfect. Thank you very much. You would get a present at the end of this, BlueCon style. And the key point there is that BlueCon is a community of people who are absolutely just lifelong learners. We are always looking to learn, and it's actually the only purple teaming meetup that actually exists in the whole of Australia. So typically, when you go to security meetups, it's often either blue teaming or red teaming. But here, we generally believe that you cannot defend what you don't understand, and you cannot attack what you don't understand either. So, bringing a different flavor to the game, which is pretty much my story, definitely makes it a bit better. Well, before we go too deep, so quick housekeeping. If you go right out here and just right in the middle of the building and go all the way down by your left, you will find the restroom there. So feel free to go ease yourself after having a good time with the pizza and the drinks. Before we actually go ahead and begin, I wanted to welcome those who are actually live streaming with us today. So one of my biggest vision, I'll get everyone to shout out to them. One of my biggest vision, and Ben and I, is to democratize cybersecurity knowledge in a way where not only those who are here in Australia can actually get to be in this sort of space. So we're live streaming today in Accra, Ghana, and live streaming in Lagos, Nigeria, and Abuja as well. So we are taking this sort of vibe that you see here into places that you've never heard of before. And typically people cannot afford it, and because just taking Nigeria for example, the minimum wage is $70 a month. So you can see that $70, which is something you would do for Uber Eats, is something that someone has to live on for a whole month. So having this sort of event and community broadcast across that whole region is definitely something we want to keep going. And perhaps in Papua New Guinea, Haiti, Vanuatu, all of the places where people have forgotten them, and BlueCon is going to try to reach them all. But yeah, in BlueCon style, can we all just shout out to those who are obviously watching live now, if you don't mind, on the count of 1, 2, 3. And so you keep clapping, keep clapping, keep clapping. Awesome. All right. My name is Sandy Chalk. So I'm the founder and CEO of CyberLink. So CyberLink is essentially an edtech startup that is actually really committed to helping people break into the cybersecurity industry. And our goal and mission is to actually train, empower, and deliver 10 million professionals by the year 2050. Highly focused on the third world countries, so you can obviously see where all this is all connected. We are building a platform so that anyone, anywhere in the world can learn for under $5 a month, including labs and everything. And our certifications will be less than $200. Wouldn't that be amazing? So yeah, we're trying to democratize the knowledge, and it's my huge pleasure to be here to be leading BlueCon. Before I actually go deep and bring in our speaker, BlueCon would not be possible without some amazing sponsors like Sidams and Stone & Chalk and Secura, which is also my current employer. Go figure. But yeah, I would like to obviously welcome Ben, who's the co-founder of Sidam, to quickly give us some quick introduction, and maybe you've got something else to share as well. Maybe some dad jokes.
Yeah. Thank you. I am a dad, yes. Thanks for joining us. I'm co-founder and CEO of Sidam. We build case management software for SecOps, and we're used by big gov defence in Australia. So defending our national critical infrastructure. I just have a quick question for you, quick poll. Who's worked in cyber for more than 10 years? No one. 2, 3. More than 5 years. More than 1 year. Cool. Who's never worked in cyber at all? Awesome. Okay. How would you? Can I get one more set of hands up? Who would like me to organize a session with some senior security folks so you can have a chat to them?
That's good.
All right. I'll take care of it.
Awesome. Sidam, what do you guys do?
Well,
You did already? Yeah. I need some hearing, help. So look, can we please give it up for Ben and for Sidam for the amazing work? All right. For those who raised up their hands, this is definitely not an ambulance chasing where I'm going to get you to come buy something. If you lifted up your hands and you're looking to get into cybersecurity, definitely come have a chat with me or any of my team who are in here as well. We genuinely want to help you, and like Ben said, we're going to get the right people here to sort of help bridge the gap. And the best part is our programs are money back guaranteed and job guaranteed, not because we'll get you a job, but because we're going to make you get a job, help you get a job. So have a chat with some of our guys. We approach things differently. It's through coaching and technical hands-on learning. That way you're able to get to your vision and go a lot quicker. All right, without any further ado, we also want to thank Secura, my current employer, who's also making this event happen. It's very rare that you find an organization that is happy to sponsor one of their employees to still go and start up their own thing. So can we give it up for Secura as well? Awesome. For those who are online, in case you cannot see me, here I am. But now to the main event of the night. So Chris K, when I had a chat with Chris, and when I first spoke to him, and I said, hey mate, in the true fashion of BlueCon, would you like to share something with the community? And he's like, oh, Sammy, I'm not quite sure what to share. But I had read Chris's blog that he wrote, which was sent to me by Wings at the back there. I'm like, this would be really cool to actually share with the community. So that's essentially what Chris is going to be sharing with us today. If you were here for the last time, for the last one, you would have heard from Bo again, which was absolutely phenomenal. So thanks, Bo. I can see you at the back. The community absolutely loves you. And we had a competition that was won by Gispa. Gispa, where are you? All right, BlueCon owes you $100, right? It's right in the bag. Come grab it later. But I was having a chat with Chris, and Chris said, "Yeah, absolutely. I would love to give back to the community. I would love to show people what I do on a day-to-day basis and some of the things that I'm learning as well." And I made things a little bit more complicated by asking him to also talk about the defensive side of things in true BlueCon fashion, right? People teaming. So if you attack it, you need to learn how to defend it. So, and Chris has put something amazing for the community. And Chris is a penetration tester at Tesserent. And Chris's journey, which I'll let him talk about when he actually comes up here, is one that may or may not have involved getting suspended from school for trying to break into the school internet or network infrastructure. But I'll let him speak about that if he feels the need to do so. But I'm really excited for tonight. So with that, let's give it up for Chris.
Give feedback.
Alright, can you guys hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Are you sure you can hear me?
Maybe speak a bit
Closer.
closer. Yeah.
Okay. Might actually just take this off.
Yeah. All right, you don't do any damage.
Yeah, exactly. Alright, so welcome to my talk. Insecure by design, almost DA by default. So for today's agenda, a little bit of who am I, my thoughts on breaking into cyber, quick little pop quiz for you guys. We go through the kill chain itself, some defense considerations, my references, and then we'll go through some questions. So, who am I? I am Chris Kay. I am a defensive security consultant for Tesserent, as Sammy kindly pointed out. My certs include CPTS, CRTP, CRTO, CREST CPSA, OSCP, PJPT, and all the other letters of the alphabet. So, I know that someone's going to inevitably ask me, Chris, how do I get into cybersecurity? And the three biggest tips that I can give you are trust your technolost. That's the biggest one. If you're curious about something, just look into it, like how does this computer connect to another computer? Why does this protocol work the way it does? How does a program work on the service? All that kind of stuff. The best people in this field are the ones that have made their entire personality, and I mean that wholeheartedly. You have people who all they do is research cyber, all they do is hack, that's it. And they are the best. And every time I see all those people, I'm inspired, but also imposter syndrome kicks in, and I'm like, wow, I can never be like them. And be curious, basically, number one, part two. Yeah, just keep looking into why things work the way they do. So, pop quiz. Which of these is a vulnerability? We got A. LDAP server-side requirements being set to none. Keep in mind, if you modify this, it could mess up compatible with clients. We got user account control, detect application installations and prompt elevation being set to enabled. We got domain network firewalls being set to do not notify. And we got user account control, virtualized file and registered write failures to per user locations being enabled.
What do you guys reckon?
Three.
Number 3? 3? 3? Any other answers? 2? It's A. LDAP signing being disabled. That's the focus of today's talk, as a matter of fact. It's disabled by default, which is
Sorry, what's being disabled?
LDAP server signing requirements.
Oh, LDAP.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's a bit small, but don't worry, we'll get into it. So the kill chain. 1, we want to identify vulnerable servers. So we're looking for a domain controller with LDAP signing being disabled. We're looking for a target server with WebDAV client running. We want an Active Directory, we want to identify Active Directory default insecure misconfigurations, such as MS machine account quota, coercible targets, and users that can add DNS records. 3, we're going to coerce the target WebDAV server that we identify in step 1, and we're going to relay that to the vulnerable domain controller we also identified in step 1, and we're going to profit. So, how do you identify if LDAP signing is disabled? Well, without LDAP signing, first of all, there's no guarantee that LDAP messages haven't been tampered with, which makes it possible for attackers to impersonate or redirect LDAP requests. In this case, we're going to relay it. I'll demonstrate that in a bit. You can use tools such as netexec or LDAP relay scan to identify vulnerable servers. So for example, in this command, using the tool LDAP relay scan, we're targeting the DC at 177.10, and we're using our low privilege user account. You can see there, server signing disabled, not enforced, and channel binding set to never, which is what we want. So how do we identify a target WebDAV server? Well, we need WebDAV to be enabled within the network in order to have a successful coercion. If you simply try to coerce SMB and relay it, it wouldn't work. There are some caveats to this. For instance, I think there's a 2019 exploit called Drop the Mic, where you can basically just do SMB to LDAP relaying, but that's not supposed to happen. However, relaying WebDAV, which is HTTP to LDAP, does work. So we can use netexec, using our low privilege user, searching for WebDAV. You can see there, we've identified that the web server on point 12 has the web client service enabled. That's what we want.
And that works for WebDAV over HTTPS.
So, yes, that's checking that the web client service is enabled. Yep.
Okay.
We're almost there. Machine accounts and DNS records. By default, low privilege users, and all users actually, in AD are allowed to add DNS records and up to 10 machine accounts to a domain. We can abuse this and create a machine account which will be granted RBCD, which is resource-based constrained delegation, and a DNS record that points to our attacker device. So we can use a tool called DNS tool. Basically what that does, we're targeting the DC at 177.10 using a low privilege user. We're adding a record with the data attacker host, and we're pointing it to our attacker device at 177.128. You can see it successfully worked. Then we add a computer account with the name please, and the password1, and we're just using our low privilege user to do that, and then also specifying the DCIP. You can see there, successfully added a machine account please with the password1. Awesome. Some caveats. Adding a DNS record that points to your host name isn't necessary in some networks, but it's better to add it if you can. The machine account quota being set to greater than 0 also isn't necessarily required, but you probably should. It is possible to do an RBCD against a user account, but it's going to have to be a sacrificial account, which means you won't be able to use it. If it seems possible to be done, then have a talk with your client about having a sacrificial account be created. It's from James Forshaw, fantastic writer, you should look up his blog. This will only work in certain situations, so RC4 needs to be enabled on the domain. You will need the user's password or the NT hash. The user, as I said earlier, is sacrificial, which means that afterwards you probably won't be able to log into it. It's going to be a dead account. It's not stealthy, you will get caught, and you're probably better off just doing a shadow credentials attack, which I won't get into in this, but I urge you to look it up. Alright, so let's actually get into the attack itself. we want to set up a relay and then coerce. So in the next screenshot, I'll show you how to set up NTLM Relay X, but for now, we are going to coerce the WebDAV server we identified in step 1 to attack our DNS entry. So we use the tool Printdebug. We're looking at 177.12, which we identified in step 1 from earlier, and we're pointing it at our attacker host DNS record, and then that 80 ASDF is just whatever, it doesn't have to be ASDF. Looks like it worked. I know it looks like a lot, just bear with me. So this is how we set up NTLM Relay X. We're targeting LDAP-S. Oh, I go back. Spoilers, no. Why is it doing that? No, stop. Just gonna escape and start again. Sorry about that.
Your PowerPoint is being compromised.
Yeah, legit. Don't know what's going on. Alright, let's start again. All my certs. Everything else. Why is it still going? Thank you. Is it good? Alright. Did I skip this? I think I did. Okay, so NTLM Relay X. Sorry about that. Why is it stopping?
It's on fast forward.
Alright, check this out. I'm just gonna switch
You're
it.
getting hacked here.
Check it out. Hell yeah. Never seen anything like this. So, NTLM Relay X, targeting LDAP-S on, I know it's small, don't worry, I'll zoom it in when I can. On the DCIP at 177.13, we're going to delegate access to the SMB user, please.
Sorry, mate. I got it getting the wrong one, that's why.
How could you? See, I have been hacked. Plugging random USBs into my computer.
Why is it making that noise?
Alright, let's try this again. It doesn't work.
Nah, just put them in there just in case.
Okay. Let's try this again. Alright. Alright. Once more. See how this goes. Skip. Alright. So, we're targeting LDAP on the domain controller at 177.13. We're going to support SMP2, and we're delegating access to the user please, which is the machine account that we created earlier. You can see down there in the bottom, it looks like a lot, but we're looking for, there we go, delegation rights modified successfully. The user please can now impersonate users on Web01 by SLU2 proxy. That's what we want. So, let's try this out.
Chris, I've also got a screen here as well, just in case for those who are not able to see that, just in case you're wondering why they want to look in there.
Yeah.
I'm definitely looking at this.
I wasn't. I was too busy looking at my own screen, but that's okay. Okay, so we use a tool called getServiceTicket. We're targeting Web01, which is the vulnerable server we identified. We're going to impersonate the user administrator, which is a domain admin. And when using the machine account credentials from earlier. Cool, looks like it saved our administrator ticket. Perfect. Use wmyexec, which is like a remote code execution tool. We're authenticating with Kerberos, no password, targeting Web01. Who am I? We are the administrator, and that's what you're supposed to see earlier, but you know, spoiled. Why does this work though? Essentially, by default, each of the following settings are enabled within an AD environment. A user can, by default, add their own machine accounts Computer accounts can, by default, modify their own MSDS allowed to act on behalf of other identity, which allows us to grant RBCD to a machine account of our choice. RPC coercion is possible by default. DNS records can be added, you guessed it, by default. And everyone say, thank you, Microsoft.
Thank you, Microsoft.
They've heard it enough.
Another caveat is printer bug or particular time or whatever other coercion tool you're not working. You can try Coercer, which is just another Python script which will check far more RPC endpoints and may get you a hit. But what if I don't have WebDAV? It turns out you can force an endpoint to actually spin up WebDAV and thus make it vulnerable to this attack. If you can find a writable share, such as like an SMB share, you can actually poison it and make it so any user that visits that share will have a WebDAV client spun up on their device. So what you need to do is you need to create a search connector file, write it to a common share. A way to determine if it's common is checking things like when was a file last modified, such as if there was a docx file that was modified like 10 minutes ago, you know it's frequently being visited. Listen for hits, and then we exploit. The device the victim accesses from does matter. If it's a server, like a Windows server, it does need to have IIS or the web server role installed. But if it's just a regular workstation, like a laptop, then these requirements are not required. You can find templates for search connectors online, or you can use that exec to automate the process. Basically what you want to do is you want to listen out for if your malicious hostname gets called out on the network. So I know the screenshot's a bit small, but bear with me. Basically, we see that the IP 192.168.177.20 has called out to rickroll.local, which doesn't exist on the network, but that's our IOC. So we know, okay, someone's visited our share because they're calling out for that hostname. So let's have a look if 177.20 has WebDAV spun up. Using our module from earlier, we can see, yep, WebDAV is on that device now, meaning we can perform the attack on that device too. Alright, some defense considerations getting towards the end here. I know I speak fast, I'm sorry about that. Ideally, the following settings should be implemented to stop this attack altogether. LDAP signing being enforced. It's the most important one. It stops the entire attack in its tracks. There is no good reason to have this be disabled other than for backwards compatibility, but that's a lame excuse. Machine account quota set to 0. Users don't need to add their own machine accounts. You should probably just have an admin do that. This was a bit tougher to implement by preventing users from adding their own DNS records. If your organization can't make these changes, then we do have some IOCs we can actually monitor for. Event ID 4741, which is a computer account being created. Does the user usually do this? Is the naming pattern of the new computer the same as the rest of the organization, etc., etc.? Event ID 5136, it's basically like ordering write changes, and you're looking for any write properties to the MSDS allowed to act on behalf of other identity for a computer account. Is the computer that was made in ID 4741 the account that was written in 5136? Well, that's a link and a very high likely IOC. You've probably been popped. Of course, you want to baseline this sort of thing. Everyone's environment's different. You don't know what's normal and what's not until you baseline it. So some example searches we can use. There, you're welcome to take a picture of them if you want. I'm not going to read out the KQL query. Give you 5 seconds, but yeah. Other than that, I think that's basically it. I'm not sure if Sammy's still in the room, but I think he might have had some other things he wanted to say about defense.
Yeah, I can go up there.
I'll give him a few seconds to come up. If he doesn't, I'm going to close the whole slide.
Alright, thanks mate.
All good?
Well,
Enjoy.
all good? No, you're not out
I've
of
warmed
this
it
yet.
up for you.
No, you're not out of this yet, mate. There's no questions. You've just done a lot of this and a lot of effort into. So, look, guys, can we please give it up for CREST? I know that was very, very Good. All right. Time for questions. Now, someone actually messaged me before we asked questions on LinkedIn today. Yes, LinkedIn. And they were wondering if they should still come, if they, knowing that this is not a basic or beginner level sort of talk. And I guess I couldn't quite find the right words to tell the person to still come, but one thing I did remember when I was starting out was that I would go to events. That was when sectors were still running, and they would go way over my head each time, and I would be like, I guess it means I haven't actually scratched the surface, right? But one thing was always true. I left that place motivated to go continue studying, right? I heard something that I had never heard before, learned something new. So if you're here, you're wondering what is LDAP signing, what is all this thing? What is event ID? There's all these different languages out there. I encourage you to keep coming. Eventually, you're not even going to, actually think about it. Your brain is just going to know. It's just like speaking, right? Autopilot. So with that out of the window, and it's actually okay to ask that question right here, right now. So if you have no idea what any of that is, Chris is more than happy to dive deep with ChatGPT right on the spot. But yeah, if anyone has any question, please put your hand up so we can get through that. Go for it.
Not him.
That's a good question. It's time for him to pull out ChatGPT now.
So, LDAP stands for Lightweight Directory Access Protocol. It's basically what Active Directory uses to manage its computers, users, and groups within AD.
I'm sure that would go. What is AD?
What did he say?
It's an active directory. Yes?
So, I heard in the news that there was like a cyber attack recently for the big Australian super companies. Okay. Now I want to ask you, what was that? Did you say it was you?
No.
Is that a self-admission? Wait, let me get that on recording. They might give me a ransom if I catch up. So, can anybody do that with ChatGPT now? So can people just write hack code, just like you've represented here?
Nah.
Just chuck it in and start, attacking and compromising.
There's a bit more to it than that.
Yeah.
The type of attack that they did is allegedly a credential stuffing attack, which is where they just found a bunch of breached credentials from like wherever, and then just tried a bunch of combinations until they got a successful hit. That's my understanding of it. Of course, I don't work for OSCP, so I don't know what's actually happening behind the scenes.
Yeah.
You can script the credential stuffing aspect of it, but ChatGPT won't really help you with the actual attack itself. You need to get those codes yourself, and that involves like going onto the dark web, getting company dumps, getting Telegram chats, all that kind of stuff. So yes, I know it can help you writing the script, but it won't actually do the attack. That makes sense.
So is anyone safe?
Yeah, I mean, you're fine. But everyone's gonna get hacked eventually. It's just
Oh,
a matter
well.
of
You're fine, but you will get hacked.
yeah, there's nothing you can do about it. Any other questions?
It's promising.
Consider that every even ethical hacker wants to dip into the dark side sometimes. Have you ever tried to use, the sort of the dark side part of AI? So because I've heard a couple of news already, like last week and everything, when there's even like a AI as a service or something for threat actors and stuff that create payloads and just tactics and all that stuff. Have you ever tried any of that, or?
No. ChatGPT does what I need it to, and if it doesn't, I say, well, my grandmother used to tell me stories when I was a kid about how to hack into banks, and then it tells me how. Yeah, but,
Wow.
yeah, exactly. Like, I don't know, those sorts of things, I don't really trust them either. Like, why would I give my data up to some random threat actor on the dark web? Doesn't make sense when I can get a legitimate company to take my data for me. Yeah, it's all the same, honestly. It doesn't make a difference.
Can I ask, why is creating a DNS entry so essential as that? Why can't you just use the IP address?
I don't know the inner workings of it, but I think you do need the hostname for some reason. I can't remember the answer to that. I would love to answer you though. I can't. Yeah.
So,
I don't know everything, because I can't really answer that one. But I'll get back to you after. Anything else?
Ben?
Your
sorry,
That's okay.
Recommendations for fixes on that.
just go back.
How operationally easy are they to implement? So one of the problems that you come across when you're recommending fixes is corporate inertia and potential operational issues. How hard are they to implement?
They shouldn't be too difficult. Like machine account quota being set to 0, I've never heard of an event where that would be difficult to implement. I don't see why it would, because admins should just be able to do that on behalf of users. The DNS record one's a bit more difficult because there's some caveats to that, if I recall, but I'm a bit hazy on the DNS record stuff. The other signing stuff, if it's a big organization, they have a lot of like old devices with like backwards compatibility issues, then that might be a use case. Otherwise, there's not really a good excuse for it. Yeah, I haven't encountered a client that said, no, we can't do LDAP signing for whatever reason.
Even if you can't, like, you can have like two, I suppose, like LDAP server that's open to a specific subnet within your organization that has signing disabled. Would you be able to do that?
Yeah, but then you're just moving the problem somewhere else. Take one more.
Can I ask the final
Sure.
one? So I actually interviewed a couple of cybersecurity specialists. Alright. My question to you is, you don't have to have the answer, that's fine, because I know you're a hacker, self-admitted hacker. So if we look at breaches, and then they have like all of this non-adherence, and there are all these frameworks, and then they have the governing bodies that are looking to ensure that companies are safe, okay? What is the best? You're saying that eventually everyone's going to get hacked, right? That's what you said. So what's the purpose of having preventative cybersecurity measures if every single person or every single company will eventually be compromised?
That's a tough question to answer, but
I'm glad I can make your life easier.
how do I put this in layman terms? Basically, she said, if everyone's going to get hacked eventually, then what's the point of having security?
Private prevention, or having all of the preventative measures and training your staff and implementing all of that to ensure that you don't, and then eventually you do. So what's the best?
I mean,
what's the best way to go about that?
You should still do it. It's like saying, I don't know, everyone can get robbed, so
don't get insurance.
Yeah, like don't get insurance. Like don't get Yeah, like
what's the best way to
there is no catch-all because every organization is different. It's a hard question to answer, but like you should still have security. Why do you have cameras in your home? Why do you have locks on your doors? The same sort of reason. It can still happen, and the odds are that it will happen, but you don't want it to happen.
That's good. Yeah, I'll probably add to that. So because I work in the defensive side now.
Yeah.
One of the key things ultimately is that from an organizational point of view, they see cybersecurity as a business risk, right? So the typical way that you would see a business leader look at it is, and this is the one way they actually understand it. They don't understand all the technical stuff we just talked about. It's pretty simple. Our annual earning is $50 million. If we get hacked, we could go bankrupt, or we're going to lose 50% of that trying to fix it. And what the CEO is going to ask you, well, how much is it going to cost me to reduce that, like the likelihood of that happening to 1%? Right? And he goes, well, it's going to cost you $1 million to reduce the likelihood to 1%. Well, from a business standpoint, it makes sense, right? Because if I can reduce the likelihood to 1%, I get to keep, and that's at 5 million, I get to keep 45 million of my revenue if it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
The same thing actually applies for those who live in Queensland in the flood zone. They tell them it's a once in a 1,000-year flood, but they're looking at the probability, right? So addressing the business risk is ultimately why organizations implement cybersecurity measures. It's not necessarily because it's not going to happen, it's because the likelihood is actually being reduced overall.
Can I add to that as well?
Yeah, absolutely.
There's also cyber industries of critical infrastructure that if they're not protected, we're all dead. So if the water system gets hacked and poisoned, gone. So I'm pretty sure it's like you need it in some ways as well.
Yeah.
Cool. Alex, you've got something to add before we do defensive stuff?
Yeah, just continuing on that, because I heard opinion saying that maybe because of that, it's not about a if, it's about a when. That maybe cybersecurity should be changed not from security, because secure gives you source of confidence, right? because how resilient your business is, not how secure. Because secure, well, it gives a sort of sense, like a bad sense, like, oh yeah, we're secure enough, but how resilient are we? Like Sammy said, how can we actually, like, can we fall back on backups? How can we defend and what implementation we'll put in and all that stuff, yeah. So what do you think about that? Maybe it should be a more bigger conversation around that, just changing terms, or, but cybersecurity it's more flashy than resilience, but anyway.
I don't know, man. I just hack stuff. Anyway, thank you very much, guys.
Hoping to give it up for Grace. Nah, thanks, mate. That was awesome. All right. So, thank you very much. I wanted to quickly apologize. We were supposed to be running an Active Directory workshop today, but for some reason, and I'm actually going to own this one. That's one of the things you learn as a CEO and founder. I didn't actually get time to finish the workshop, so it's about 95% complete. I'll go ahead and complete that, and then I'll send everyone an email with the actual full workshop. So it's going to show you how to set up. I chose to go about it the hard way. If anyone knows me here, they know that I often choose to go about things the hard way. So rather than trying to log on to AWS and go in and click in and add in an EC2 instance, I'm actually using something called infrastructure as code, Terraform, to write scripts that can actually go and deploy resources for you on AWS. So that way, whenever you want to build your lab, you don't actually need to go and log on to AWS. You just need to click a button, Terraform apply, and then your lab will be up and running. So all of that is all sorted now. The only part that is actually pending, I've written the script, is the guide, the screenshots with here's how to do it. So that's about 95% complete. So if you were waiting to do that today, I do apologize. It's definitely my fault, and I'll get to it next time. And you guys should get an email from me before the end of the month. Is that all right, guys? You gonna forgive me?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Cheers. Sorry. That's cool. All right. So when Chris and I were sort of chatting about this, I thought I was spending a bit more time on the defensive side of things, a little bit more. And because I know a lot of people here maybe perhaps don't actually know a lot about some of the defensive mechanisms that is actually recommended here. So if you are not actually aware, so we can sort of pick at each one of them. I think Chris has done a really good job at explaining what LDAP is and what LDAP signing is in and out of itself. But with the prevention of DNS record modification, so typically if you work in an enterprise organization, they would actually manage your local device from the Active Directory, which is like the mothership of the organization. So you would not have admin privileges, typically called local admin privileges, to be able to modify your host record, whether it's Windows or Linux. So that's one way that they can prevent that using group policy. But if you do have a way to modify this, there's actually a way that you can actually monitor for DNS record changes using Windows event logs, and that way you can actually implement a script in your SIEM that is able to detect that. So that's one way you can do that. Another way that you can do that. The choice of SIEM, like he's talked about. Before we talk about SIEMs in general, so let's look at the event IDs. So for those who've never really heard about what event IDs are, so event IDs are basically the way that system manufacturers, that's one way to put it, because it's not just Microsoft. System manufacturers and software manufacturers actually identify errors in your system or activities in general that are going on in your system, because it's really hard. There's actually thousands of these for Windows. So it's really hard to really be able to put a pin on what is actually going on. And in some cases, there's actually the same event code but multiple different events. A perfect example is 4624. Right? It's insane. Right? You can literally have a whole argument on that one. I've seen a lot of arguments had over 4624. But so the key thing here is that this is a way that the system is able to tell you, hey, if someone did something, this is exactly what time it happened, and here's exactly who did it. And in cybersecurity, this is actually called non-repudiation. So the whole idea is that if someone did anything, we want to be able to identify who did it and when exactly it happened. And this is essentially what the whole of cybersecurity is based on. Like I work in a SOC, a Security Operations Center. All we do is look at the log messages that have all these event IDs on there, and we basically look for. Typical example would be the 4741, where computer account is created. this is a typical, event that you would see in an organization, but there's a problem because if you're looking for an event and they're triggering an alert based on that, it's so noisy. Because in a typical organization, you're going to get lots and lots of this, especially if they're using some cloud, environment or using something called a VDI, virtual desktop, environment. So image. So basically, what we do is you use something called detection correlation. So detection correlation is essentially where you're not just looking for one event ID, you're looking for multiple. So you would typically look for something like, hey, if someone logs onto this computer at between the time of 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. right, Eastern Standard Time, don't trigger an alert because typically it's very likely to be normal. We can even go deeper on that. We can then say, oh, well, we now know who administrators are, right? We know that administrators are this guy, that guy, and we know that they work between the hours of 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. So therefore, if the username, this is technically how you actually write the code. If username is equals this guy or this guy or this guy, and event ID is that guy, and time of the event is between 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., don't trigger an event. So it will basically do something called an implicit deny, where it's denying based on what you've defined, and then anything else that deviates from that logic, it will trigger an alert for it. And this is essentially one of the ways that you can reduce false positive. Anyone who works in the SOC here would know that one of the biggest pain of working in cybersecurity is the fact that it never stops. Like, come rain, come shine, 24/7, 7 days a week, public holidays, it doesn't matter, because hackers don't stop. So therefore, in a typical organization where they're probably pulling in close to 50 gigs per day of ingest, some of them will actually see organizations that are doing 500 gigs per day, gigabytes of data, logs, not just the events they're doing. This is just metadata coming out of the environment. It can be extremely difficult to actually be able to, find the ping inside of the organization, what looks bad. So I was having a chat with a few guys who are veterans in the industry, and one of the things that dawned on me, obviously being a leader in cybersecurity, is that 95% of people in cybersecurity have actually never seen a cyber breach. So, and it's a big deal because if you've never seen an actual attack before, how do you know how to defend against it, right? So what we're doing at the moment, and this meetup is only for seniors, but we're actually gathering a few people together where we're going, let's actually create an ecosystem where people can actually come see what an actual attack looks like, so that if you're working in a SOC or you're working as a defender or a threat detection engineer or security engineer, if you see something that looks sus, you can actually identify it. So, but going back to the point of the detection, you would look for this things typically in the organization. You can actually take this deeper than just the time and just the usernames and the computer. You can actually look for things called, there's something called a honey token. So a honey token is essentially where you as an administrator, you understand your environment a lot better than a hacker does. So what you're actually doing is you're banking on that understanding that you have by actually creating random users and random computer accounts and leaving them laying around, not to be used at all. So the idea is that when a threat actor comes in, and you intentionally make it a little bit weaker, so it's pretty easy to find. So when a threat actor comes in, they actually go for that. And you can build detection that are actually looking for that specifically. That's one way to reduce the noise.
So honeypots?
No, honey tokens.
Okay.
So honeypots are more, where you've actually released the system out to the wild, asking attackers to come hack you. Honey tokens are literally artifacts where you've left behind, like user accounts, things that are within the organization. But you are definitely on the right point. Is
that the same as like a canary token?
Yeah, it is. It's also called a canary token as well. So on the second event ID here, that's looking for MSDTC allowed act on behalf of identity. That one is so easy to detect because that does not happen all the time in the organization, so you can detect that easily. Now, you're probably looking at this and going, event IDs, sweet, they're amazing, I just need to know all of them. Like I said, there are thousands of these, and this is just for Microsoft. There's some for Audit D, which is Linux. There are some for, even your IP address, your CCTV camera at home also has its own IDs as well. It's definitely great to sort of, try to cram a few in. Like a well-known one that if you're working in cybersecurity that you should know is event ID 4624 and 4688. So 4688 actually detects when someone is trying to run a command in your environment. But that one, I'm going to tell you guys a story. So typically when organizations want to enable auditing, so this is called auditing, when they're enabling the logs, they often just go into a place called Active Directory, and they go into the group policy, and then they go to advanced settings, and then computer settings, GPU settings, and then they turn on event ID. It's called process monitoring. Now the thing that most people don't know is that when you turn that on, it actually only tells you that someone did something, but not what the person did. So we had a situation at work recently where someone actually went in and ran a bunch of malicious commands, and we reached out to the client and we're like, hey, we can see that someone is running commands, but we can't actually see what command they're running. And the client was like, oh, but we ended with event ID 4688. Everything is all good. But when we dug in deeper, it actually turned out that for this particular activity to monitor the command line as well, you also need to actually enable detailed tracking. So that's something to obviously keep in mind while you're playing with this. I would actually like to do a deep dive on event ID. This is really cool. But the cool thing with event ID 4688 is that it goes beyond just seeing what else is happening. So all of this that Chris did in here, where he's running a bunch of commands. Obviously, you can see that he ran that from his Kali Linux. It doesn't have to be Kali Linux. You can use CentOS, but hackers like to use Kali Linux. It's a thing. But so all of this command that he ran, like especially the impacted one, this is actually. Okay. Next one. They came for me. All right. So this impacted. By the way, if anyone has noticed, there's a lot of impacted. This impacted that, impacted that. That is actually a really good module that I think people should go and learn. So impacted can be used to do a whole lot of things, especially when it comes to attacking an Active Directory or Windows environment. But not just for Windows, it also has some Linux modules in there. But you can do things like pass the hash, where you're just stealing the hash and then you're using that to replay that to the computer. I feel like I need to explain what that means, but just hold on to that thought. There's a whole bunch of other things you can do, and you can see what Chris did here is essentially pretending like he's another computer that is within the network, and he's saying, hey, I'm trying to log on to this computer, I've got the right credentials, you don't need to check me, I've got everything right. And the domain controller goes, I'm going to check my hash, oh, it matches, easy, no problem, I'm going to let you in. But the thing though is that from a defensive point of view, this is using something called SMB and RPC. So you can actually use that to pick up this activity in the environment over the network. So if you have something like an IPS IDS device like Suricata, if you've never heard that before, that's all right. We're going to do a workshop on that later. So you can actually look for that sort of activity where you're seeing, like typically if you're monitoring the environment and all of a sudden. And this is only possible if you have a baseline. And this is one of the things that I train my team to do is to understand the client's environment. Because if you know what you're supposed to expect, then you would know when something is going wrong. I'm just taking it down real quick. So you can actually look for where there is a deviation from the norm, and that would be a really good telltale sign for you to know when someone is trying to hack into your environment. But all of the commands that Chris ran would have spun off a lot of noise in the environment within the AD. So that's a really good, easy way. Now, in saying that, I know Chris is he wasn't very being stealthy at all. There's a lot of ways to be stealth. Like he doesn't have to run these commands from this Kali Linux. He could have literally just dropped a C2, silent C2, agent on the actual Windows endpoint, and it will just run the command and use something called leaving off the line binaries, which is PSSX, and run the same command, and you wouldn't even know anything about it. It will just blend in. So there's definitely a lot of ways to avoid detection here. But this is where I'm actually going to talk about a concept called defense in depth. So defense in depth is essentially where you're going, well, I know a threat actor is going to try to attack me from, do multiple things when they get into my environment. So typically what would happen is following the queue chain, they will do reconnaissance outside of the organization. There is two types of reconnaissance, passive and active reconnaissance. So this is basically, without the big name, it's just scanning. So they're looking at your environment, they're doing some research about you. That is passive. They're not actually trying to interact with you, physically or logically. But once they actually start interacting with you, where they're using scanning tools, and that's when you can actually start picking that sort of thing up. But the moment where it's passive, there's not really that much you can do, right? So the idea is that typically, if you cannot detect reconnaissance, well, how about you detect initial access? So initial access could be what we talked about, credential stuffing. You can detect credential stuffing by making sure that there's more so prevent or mitigate by making sure there's MFA enabled in the environment when someone tries to log on. So in the case that you brought up with the super, the issue there was that they didn't have multi-factor authentication enabled.
What do you mean? So, because all they did was, so they only admitted to 4 hacks of $500,000 each for one superannuation organisation, but there were more than 5 that were hacked in total.
Yeah.
So that means there was like $2 million siphon. So if there's no multi-factor authentication, is this on the client's end or is this for the super company itself?
That is.
The super.
That's a grey zone. Now, the reason I say it's a grey zone is, now in this case, we all know that the super company did never actually, again, if anyone is listening to this, I'm not against any super, please, I don't want to go missing. But we all know that, based on the information, allegedly, they didn't enable multi-factor authentication. So in this case, we would say it's the super's fault. But the reason I said it's a grey zone is that typically, in most, everyone here is guilty of it, actually. Your organization, the platform you're using might be telling you, hey, enable multi-factor authentication, and then there's an option to skip it. You're like, skip. Now, something interesting actually, when I did more research on my team and I did more research about this, one thing was actually very apparent, which no one actually noticed, is that pretty much everyone in here cannot withdraw from the super. So by default, you cannot withdraw money from your super because of the age limit.
Yeah, that's right.
So which means, when we thought about it, we actually figured out that this was actually way more sophisticated than people thought. Because one, it wasn't one super company, it was multiple. So which means that someone got this credential and waited for a very long time. And two, it was coordinated because they did it all at once. Because they know if they did it for one, the other super companies would quickly go and fix the problem.
And it was age targeted as well.
Yeah, and it was age targeted, so they knew exactly, who to target and who they're able to withdraw money from. Now we dug even deeper, and we found out that again, this information is actually TLP Ember, but I'm not going to go too deep into it. So what that means is that it's not to be shared outside of where I got it from, but I can share with BlueConians. So,
should we turn off the camera? Should we pause the camera? We're telling Nigeria right now.
That's a perfect scene. I'm sorry, Chris, I'm stealing your memes. Alright, so with this particular case, we actually found out that the way that the attack initially took place was through browser, credential theft. So typically, I'm going to do it anyways. Put up your hand here if you use your browser as a password manager to store your password. Right, that was exactly what happened. So it turns out that when your browser tries to update itself, it actually dumps all that password and username into a local file in clear text when it's updating itself. So if a threat actor essentially comes into your environment, and there could be, I don't know, desktop support from Microsoft. Actually, someone called me the other day. He's like, "My name is George, and it's got the thickest VPN." I said, "I'm like, bro, your name is definitely not George." It's like, "How do you know?" I'm like, Anyways, so they could basically, the person could steal that credential. So a threat actor can actually try to update your browser. And again, the agent, they don't know how to update the browser. So the browser is probably running an old version in general. So, and whenever they log into I see this all the time, right? They log into their Facebook or their bank account, they just click save my password. So all that save my password that's happened all over the place, threat actors actually got a hold of that, and that was sold on the dark web.
Interesting.
By initial access brokers. So that was exactly how people got access to it, and that was how the attack happened.
So it sounds like
I can't go deeper any further than that.
It sounds like some miseducation and some missteps with prevention. So it potentially could have been prevented, is what you're saying.
Yes, very much so. And this is why I said to you, it actually comes down to, and this is what a lot of people who are technically in cybersecurity, well, I'm both, they miss the point, which is all of this long before a threat, an organization goes and buys a firewall. A business decision has already been made. And that business decision comes down to how much do we value our organization. So the difference between a $10 million cybersecurity budget and a $1 million cybersecurity budget actually comes down to the value that the organization places, or how risk adverse, or how much risk appetite the organization has in general. So typically, the supers were like, it's going to cost us $10 million to roll out. Because if you really think about it, there are millions of Australians who have super accounts.
That's right.
So, and if you looked at Microsoft, the last time I checked, there's like $10 per head to enable MFA.
Yeah, right.
So do the math. That's a lot of money. So it makes sense that there was a business decision made there. So they could have easily gone, well, we know that no one can withdraw money from people's super. What are the chances that someone is going to come after the super? Everyone knows that, So this is essentially where what is called security by obfuscation, where you're trying as much as you can to hide without someone seeing you that you're there, but you're actually there.
And that's why the authorities have said to them, just come out now and tell us how much you've got stolen from you, because we're going to find out eventually. So just spill the beans,
Yeah. You go.
The other consideration, if they don't enforce MFA and then the users choose not to set up MFA and they haven't reused their passwords, but then the risk of, no, it's your fault that your super got stolen, and the risk is mitigated to the super company's customers rather than the super company itself, because they chose not to take them up more.
Yeah, that's potentially one way to legally get out of jail free card, because ultimately you can't hold them, culpable for the fact that the attacker, like if you notice, the threat actors didn't actually attack the supers themselves; they attack their customers. It's just like when your Facebook account gets hacked, you don't go to Facebook and go, "Hey, it's your fault." Right. So that's typically the way that super companies are. Again, I want you guys to know that it actually comes down to business decision. Someone made that decision from a very high up. So anyways, because we don't have a lot of time, I'm very, we've got 30 minutes. How are we going, Ben? Alright, I was going to actually show you guys what this event ID thing we're talking about actually looks like for those who have never seen it before. Now, the interesting thing is, I'm actually going to show you my real event ID. So for that reason, I'm not going to use my work laptop. Daphne, can you please check the comment section? Can you check the comment section? I think people are not hearing it properly. That's something we need to sort out. There's actually a wireless microphone. I'm just putting it in there in the chat. let's keep going. By the way, I'm absolutely loving this conversation, so I'm going to leave an extra time for you to actually get to catch up. But let's get down to business. So I'm going to actually show you guys how to enable event IDs, like I talked about before, and I'm actually going to show you what this actually looks like in practice. So if you're actually working in cybersecurity, this is essentially what you're going to be doing. Identify. That's two. Beautiful. Alright, so what you're looking at here is something called Event Viewer. So Event Viewer is essentially how Windows, Microsoft Windows uses to is what they use to capture all of the telemetries and the metadata. Now, I'm actually sort of quietly saying this. What you're seeing here in the log message is actually not the actual event. This is the artifact, like the breadcrumb, like if you're eating bread, the breadcrumb you leave on the ground to tell people, hey, I definitely ate bread here. That's what log messages are. So they're definitely breadcrumbs that tell you that someone did do something. So typically in Windows, there are three main event types. So there's system, there is application, and then there's security. So typically, most people in cybersecurity care about the security event type. So it's like a channel. But there is a lot of good information to actually find in the application side and also the system side as well. So the system is an application that's really good for troubleshooting. So if you install some application and it's not working properly, you can use that to find out what is going on. Again, if the event is enabled. So in some cases, the event ID that is used to track the activities you're looking for might not be enabled, and I'm going to show you guys how to do that real quickly. So within each channel, it's actually broken down into multiple event types. So there's critical, and there's error, there's warning, there's information. If you notice something, you can see that the further down I go down to the event types, the more events you can see. So this actually tells you the total number of events found in the last 7 days. And for someone wanting to get into cybersecurity, this is basically what you're spending your whole day digging through that, trying to find which one of this looks malicious. Right, and this is where AI is going to be able to help out a lot, and obviously tools such as UEBAs and SIEM, so security information and event management systems, can actually help normalize this sort of event and categorize them and make them look a bit more like something called common events. They put them into categories so that when you're looking for them, you can go rather than looking for 25,700 odd events at once. You're looking at collectives, so you're going, hey, I want to see only ones that have this username in it. So that's essentially how you can break it down. But all right, let's quickly look at it. I'm actually going to show you guys how to actually find this as well. So say for some reason you don't have access to this application, you've got access to another application. So event viewer application might be corrupt, but this event actually still stored locally on your computer as well in Windows. So in this case, if you guys want to see what I've been up to, so let's look at security events. So this can tell you what is actually going on here. So this tells me that privileged access was called. So someone tried to do something with a bit of privilege on my computer, and is that better? Yeah. Right. Yeah. And it wasn't successful. Now, typically, there's two ways to look at this. You can look at it from, that's just normal activity, or you can look at it from the point of view of, someone malicious is trying to get a hold of my computer. So you need evidence, you need context to be able to make sense of this event. And that context ultimately goes down to who did it, when did they do it, why did they do it, what did they do, and how did they do it. So this is something I've created a code for this. It's WX5H. So it's when, what, who, why, and where, and then how. This is essentially what you want to have at the back of your mind if you want to work in cybersecurity. This is the curiosity mindset. You're asking a lot of questions, and those questions lead to more questions, right? Because if you find an answer to that question, then your next question should be why. Why is that an answer to this question? And then you find yourself stuck in a rabbit hole for weeks trying to find something, but it's fun. So typically what you want to see here is who tried to do this. Oh, there's a process called Discord.exe. Right, I can see that Discord tried to perform this activity. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm assuming you didn't get 5 USD prompts within a second, because all those 5 privileged access events happened at the same second.
Yes. Yes, and that's a really good question. All right, the question she's asked is, does Windows grant access to an application that is asking for privilege without asking for something called user access control? So user access control is basically called UAC. It's how Windows tries to make sure that any application that is trying to access its most privileged section is validated and confirmed by the user who is actually currently logged onto the system. So there's a way to get around that, and this is essentially where credential caching comes in. So what often would happen is, like, there are some applications that if you start the application as administrator, it's never going to ask you for UAC again. So it's going to always do whatever it needs to do. And this is actually really interesting that you asked that question, because one of the biggest mistakes, and this is from a hiring manager to anyone who's looking for a job in cybersecurity here. And by the way, we're going to release a free course on this on the CyberLink LMS for anyone to come do. So that's probably going to be available in May. So one of the biggest mistakes that I see a lot of people looking for a job in cybersecurity make is they try to run before they've crawled and walked. Cybersecurity is technically not an entry-level job. It's something you do after you understand how computers work, how the internet actually functions. Like what I'm telling you right now, you don't learn this in cybersecurity in general. This is something that, once you've worked with IT, you've done troubleshooting, I know what event IDs are. Now, this does not mean that your cybersecurity career will take 5 years or you have to go start with IT. In some cases, that is actually the best idea, to start with IT and work your way up, because in most cases, most IT jobs pay pretty well, right? And then you work your way up and eventually get into cybersecurity. But if you're wanting to get into cybersecurity and you don't want to do IT, there are two things you need. You need to make sure you're patient, because in most cases, there is no job coming your way in 6 months. I'm going to be 100% honest with those who are looking for a job here. You need to be persistent. I've actually seen people who have looked for a job in cyber for 6 years. Now, I'm going to digress and actually explain what I mean by persistence. If you do not love this stuff, if this stuff doesn't make you jump off your seat and go, yes, I popped the shell. You can tell from Chris's voice, it's like, I don't know, all I just do is hack and break stuff. That's because he loves this stuff. So if you don't have that passion and that enthusiasm, like, the people that we work with, the one question I keep asking them is, why do you want to get into cybersecurity? If it's not a calling for you, you're going to burn yourself out pretty quickly. Like in some cases, when we had the CrowdStrike situation, I didn't sleep for 2 days. I sent an email to almost 2,500 people. So because I'm the boss in the organization, so I have to own it and make sure that I get it. So typically in cybersecurity, it needs to be calling. It needs to be a calling. I didn't get out of that going, oh, that sucked. That actually felt it. So I'm like, yes, something happened. We can actually fix it and show people that we do work. So please, the key question you need to ask yourself if you wanted to get into cybersecurity is, why am I trying to do this? It's not just the new, the most exciting thing that everyone is doing. You need to be able to ask yourself that question, and once you can find an answer to it, it means that once you get into cybersecurity and you don't find your work-life balance there, you understand why you're doing it. Because most people who work in cyber, like you said, the best guys in this game are the guys who make this their whole life. And it's pretty worth it, by the way. Sorry, I had to digress to explain that. So basically, in this case, what is happening is, when I see this sort of event is when I start my computer for the first time. Pay attention here, and there's something called startup, menu, or auto start, or startup app. So typically, this is essentially how your operating system knows to go and start a few apps to get them ready for you, so that when you want to use them, they're ready. But what happened in this case is that Discord is part of that startup application. So I'll show you guys what that is. So if I go to my taskbar and wait for that to pop up, so you guys are going to see into the depth of my life. So see this place? So this is the startup task manager. This has all of my startup apps. All right. If you go all the way to find Discord, if I can find it. Follow Teams. Yeah, here. So typically, this is the update. This is actually not it. Why is Discord not here? What moment of truth? Actually, I've seen this in the wild before. In some cases, applications won't be listed here, but if you actually go inside of the application themselves, you will see that they're made to start automatically. I've seen this mostly for VPN apps where it won't actually appear here, but in the settings. So typically, this is a cheeky move by a lot of vendors because they don't want you to be able to disable it. Basically what you're doing here is just putting a code inside of your app to say, register here that you want to start whenever the computer starts. But you don't have to do that. Microsoft will still sign your application and let it work. So typically what's happening is, if any of this is enabled, it means that whenever my computer starts, this is going to be started by the computer automatically. So you can see create shop is being started by the computer. So now, if any of this application needs privilege to be able to run, and I haven't typed in my password, it's going to fail. And that's essentially what is happening here. So this code started when my computer started, but I had not typed in the password, and it's trying to communicate with the computer, and the computer is going, hang on, you don't have the credentials to be able to actually communicate, so it's actually failing authentication in that case. So this is exactly what is happening here. So you can actually see what privilege they're looking at getting. You can see the logon event ID. You can actually also see the event type as well, which is some information that is useful here. But if you notice, the event ID is present. We can see the keyword here. We can see the computer that it took place, and we can see the time. And with all of this stuff, we can actually start to build a picture of what to look for when you're trying to detect threat. So quick one, without spending too much time into this. So the same thing for application. Application is going to more look for things that are happening within the apps that you have. In your environment, as the app is functioning, it's doing a bunch of things, looking through the sockets and doing the things that apps do, making remote calls, reaching out to DLLs. This is just keeping a record of all of that activity. And the system is more looking at the operating system itself, the drivers. So you can see here there's a warning. Pardon me. So it's basically saying detected unrecognized USB driver. Does anyone know what that is? That's all right. I won't bother about it. It's too late for this. It's Wireshark. Yeah. So it's saying, Wireshark USB driver. Do not know what this is. So yeah. Again, please don't feel bad if you don't remember that. You spend a lot of time in this and you kind of second to nature. Now I've just shown you guys the typical Windows event you will see. Did I say there was 3 of them? There's 4. But the main ones are 3. So you can see setup. Typically, no one ever looks at setup. Forwarded event, typically, this is used for when you have something like an SQL server or whatever it is that is running on that computer, and you can actually forward the logs of that application to appear here. So that's what forwarded events are. Now, I wanted to show you guys something pretty cool. So if you actually deep dive into the application and service logs, look at that, you can find PowerShell. So PowerShell is one of the best logs ever that was created by Windows. There's another one called Sysmon. Sysmon is also really awesome because you can use that to detect a bunch of events. So in this case, you can actually see PowerShell gives you a lot more information. Look at that. Including the commands that are being run, everything that's happening. Look at that. Like, isn't that so much more beautiful? So sorry. I never thought I would describe event logs as beautiful. But you can use this to obviously see what's happening in the environment. If you even dug deeper, so you can even see antivirus logs as well, even though I don't have Kaspersky. This is from way old events. You can even dig deeper inside of Windows. You can actually dig a bit deeper to find something like Sysmon in here. Windows, Sysmon. Where are you? Microsoft. Oh, interesting. Well, it could actually be that because I haven't installed Sysmon, but Sysmon should be in here, but I thought it was actually there by default. Interesting. Does anyone know if Sysmon is actually available by default? Right, because you have to install it first. Right. So Sysmon is another event management system or application that you can actually use. Now, looking at the time, I want to stop so people can actually have a chat. If you're watching this obviously live, hopefully you can hear me. If you're not able to hear me properly, this is our first stream. We're going to get better gear. If you know, if your organization, if you're working and your organization is happy to sponsor BlueCon, please let me know. If you want to speak, definitely let me know as well. We want to make this even better. So.
I had a question. So if someone was running an instance on VMware,
Yep.
would you be able to see the logs of that through the Wireshark app?
Yeah, that's if you have promiscuous mode set. Yeah.
Promiscuous mode.
I know, it sounds weird, right? It literally means what it means. It means it's able to I don't know. PG. Alright, so I want to show you guys how these logs are actually stored real quick. So you go inside your system and you go into Windows. So this is stored inside the place, inside of your C drive. So you go inside of C drive and you go to Windows. This should be here, in between. Alright, I'm gonna have to Google that one. I think I forgot where it is going to stay. Just trying to look for where the Windows event is stored by default. I think I forgot where it is. Oh yeah, season 32. Alright, just 2 minutes more, guys. And we should be out of here. So we're going to system 32. Jeez, that's a lot of files. Yeah, here. So that's the event, the file we're looking for. So inside of logs, we can find all of those different log messages in here. Now, this is relevant for. Sorry, guys, 2 minutes, and I'll let you have some good fun. So this is the reason I'm showing you guys where to actually find this. The reason I'm showing you guys. Thanks so much, guys. The reason that. Oh yeah. Even the computer wants me to shut up.
Is that logged in event viewer?
Sorry?
Is that logged in event viewer?
Yes. This is logged. Yeah.
Battery is.
It is logged.
Really?
Yes. So, and this is why it's so cool, right? It's the best ammunition we have against attackers. Although, in saying that, this event can be modified, and this is why I'm showing you this. So you can see all the log files here. Someone can actually come in here and delete it. Once you delete it, it's gone. You can't find it anymore. So this is often why you want to send the logs to a third-party system while it's being generated, so it's not stored in the system anymore. So no one can come in there and destroy it. And it's actually called defense evasion. That's the actual key technique for it. So you can actually find all the different log messages in here. The reason this is really cool is that when you're actually doing an investigation for malware or ransomware or whatever it is, you are actually not doing that on the local computer. You're doing that in some other computer, so you want to be able to export this out. So if you want to find where this is stored, I'll just show everyone again where the files live. So this is log path, HC, Windows 32, thanks so much, Gispa. System 32, Win event, Win EVT, and logs. And this is where every single thing you record in your system is installed. Unfortunately, we've run out of time. I was going to show you guys where to actually enable this as well. So it's actually in group policy. So there's local group policy and global group policy. So this computer actually has its own group policy, and this is how it's able to control a lot of things that is happening, and you can actually enable all of these events from there. But with that, does anyone have any questions before I close? Yeah.
Yeah, I just had a question about like the next few months what you guys have planned for workshops and stuff.
That is a really good question. We were going to actually do the security orchestration, which is what CIDEM. So guys, if you know CIDEM, just let them know to give us an NFR license so we can pick at the platform. But I'm having a chat with Ben to see if we can actually do that. Like actually see how, if you're working in a security environment, you actually need to go and put all of the files in there, like how you actually work with other people. Assuming there's a ransomware, like I said, you're often not working on the actual computer because everything is compromised, right? Your communication channel is compromised, so you often need to work on a third party, and that's essentially what CIDEM, our sponsors, actually do. They provide you the ability to communicate in crisis mode. So I was hoping we can actually get access to the platform and test it out, right? Try to pretend as though that we've been hit by ransomware. We can actually see it and then do something called a tabletop exercise and using it too. That would be pretty cool. We did that at Ned Night, by the way, which Ned Night is going to also be open to the public. So it's going to be pretty awesome. So Ned Night, every Saturday night, we all come together, learn, hack, defend. So with that, something that Cyberlink is also going to open up to anyone to be able to join. Yeah, thank you. So yeah, thanks so much everyone for listening. Once again, if you're looking to get into cybersecurity and you need someone to sort of help you, we provide not just mentorship, but we provide coaching and technical training. Definitely come have a chat with me. I'll be more than happy to help. But the key thing I actually see, and by the way, guys, I'm picking a fight with the universities. And this you guys are gonna actually love this. So one of the things that led me to start Cyberlink is that typically international students come to this country and they spend almost $140,000, and there is no promised outcome. It's just a piece of paper at the end of it. And you see everyone, with a master's degree, with a bachelor's degree, looking for a job, and they don't actually have the knowledge required to get a job in the field. That's because the knowledge, and this is not actually the fault of the the lecturers or whatnot. It's just that the university, the institution itself is far removed from reality. And what we're doing is we're actually saying to people, why do you want to get into cybersecurity? Well, if you can answer that question, and then we ask you, well, do you need someone to help you who actually cares about what it is they're trying to do, trying to achieve? And this is actually the only reason why we're able to do money back guarantee and job guarantee, because we actually care about the outcome for you. We don't give grades, we don't give all of those things that they give you to make you feel good, because the only true outcome is a job, a promotion, or you learn something new. So if you truly want someone who's actually going to really help you and push you, again, the coaching sessions. Alex, you want to tell everyone what the coaching sessions feels like?
Brutal.
We actually keep you accountable, and this is one of the hardest things because there's a lot of content everywhere. There's YouTube, university. There is everyone is giving out free courses, but the one thing that's missing is someone who actually help keep you accountable so you can go from point A to point B, and that's what we do. So we're like your guide, your coach, to make sure that you actually meet those deadlines, you complete those things, and you better not come to a coaching session telling me, I went to meet my mom the other day. I think we had someone who was celebrating Eid, and he was like, we got family party. I'm like, great, awesome, congratulations. 9 p.m. I want to see you online studying. Because ultimately, if you do care about breaking in, you have to put in the effort. You know, there's no shortcut to it, and we're happy to be your guide or your shepherd through that journey. Thank you everyone for being here. Hopefully we'll see you guys next month. Awesome. All right, let the conversations begin. Don't run away. We've got at least maybe 15 more minutes, so have a chat with everyone. And
I got it.
thanks so much for coming.
That's all right. I'm supposed to be on fire.
Right, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. I don't work in
I figured you were.
I speak for a living.
Do you have a card or something?
I'll give you my answer.
Oh yeah,
That's the best way to do it.
you don't have. No one actually does cards anymore, but I always ask.
No one does cards. Some Americans do it. They'll give you some digital thing.
Maybe.
I do have one
It's
right
always
here.
easier just to scan that.
Yeah. You got it.
I'm trying to type it.
Sorry about that.
What did you say?